Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to day 6 of palette week. I know we took like a 2-day intermission. I missed 1 day of an upload because I got far behind, and then we took a break to also talk about my Sephora VIB sale recommendations. But I'm really excited because today's video is going to be my April palette Shop My Stash. So I'll be sharing with you some of my most used palettes from my March palette Shop My Stash. We'll also go through my single Z palette that I put together, and then I'll share with you the palettes that I have pulled out to reach for in April to give you maybe some inspiration of palettes that you might want to reach for. I also took inspiration from your guys' comments from my last video and have palettes pulled out that you guys recommended I reach for in April. So I'm really excited about today's video. If you have yet to subscribe to my channel and you like project panning content, palette themed content, or just chit-chatting about makeup, I would love if you'd consider subscribing before moving on. But other than that, if you want to see the palettes that I pulled out for April, let's get into the video. All right guys, so I always like to start with my little single Z palette, or my Z palette with singles in it. I am trying to get a little bit better about rotating through my singles, and this was the collection of eyeshadows that I pulled out. I had a request to pull out a yellow shade. I did not use my yellow shade, so we're keeping my yellow shade in. Where's my little post-it note that has... Okay, which shades did we use? I did use both of these two shades. This is, I think both of them actually are from the Colourpop Dream Street palette. I am so close to hitting pan on this matte brown shade. I am going to leave that in, but I am going to pull out this shade right here to put this back. I want to say that's the shade Kaleidoscope or something like that from the Colourpop Dream Street palette. What else did I reach for? I did not reach for this bronze shade at all. I'm not sure where this shade came from, maybe a Colourpop single I imagine, but I just rolled in a new shade very similar to this in my whole collection project pan. That video will be going up tomorrow, and then my final palette week video will be going up on Wednesday? Thursday? The 6th. Hopefully. I hope I have my days right, because then I'm gonna like try and fill my Sephora haul and everything's gonna get screwed up. I'm sorry that palette week really turned into like palette week and a half. Anyway, I did reach for, I am gonna put this back because this is so similar to the shade that I just rolled in, and I need to focus on hitting pan on that new shade. I did reach for both of these shades right here. So this is from Terra Moon. This is in the shade Meteorite. It's a really beautiful, shifty kind of like pink and green shade. And then this one is also from Terra Moon Cosmetics, and it's in the shade Hot Cider. So I'm really happy that I did get some use out of those singles. And then I didn't reach for any of these three at the bottom. This one is from Shroud Cosmetics. This is in the shade Take a Hint, so we'll keep that in. And then this one I think is another Terra Moon shade in the shade Snow Globe. We'll keep that in. And then this is a depotted shade from Alamar Cosmetics. So I'm going to try and hit pan on this. I did reach for this, but I'm going to keep that in. And then these four I did not use, so we'll keep those in, and we'll roll in a few more singles at the end of the video for April. I don't want this video to get super lengthy, so I do just like to share my most used palettes of the palettes that I pulled from the previous month. Any surprises? I do have a couple of pictures of like eyeshadow looks that I created, which I'll share with you guys, but then we'll quickly get into the palettes that I selected for April. So my most used palettes from March that were pulled for the Shop My Stash series, I have the Colourpop Lush Life, which I reached for a total of 3 times, and I created a look that you guys seem to love. I can't remember what video it was that I posted, but you guys kept asking what palette is that, and the majority of the look was created with the Colourpop Lush Life palette. I had so much fun with like this lime green shade, and I'm honestly really excited to continue to reach for this. I could see myself pulling this out potentially in like July again, because it just feels very like June, July to me. I also reached for my Huda Beauty Wild Python palette 3 times, and I actually used this in tandem with the Lush Life quite a bit. I really liked this like chartreuse matte shade, but I also really enjoyed this shade up here. It's like this more neutral green sort of shade that I liked to pair with just like neutral brown to create a more like neutral green look, if you will. And then I also reached for my ABH Jackie palette 3 total times. I'm really happy to continue to get more use in my ABH Jackie. It's a palette I love, but I find myself feeling like I can't use it unless it's a special occasion, which is just so silly. I feel like I'm getting closer and closer to pan on the shade Ginger right here, so I really am hopeful that I'll just continue to reach for this palette naturally and then hit pan on that shade. And then really quickly, I wanted to just share a palette that kind of like surprised me. So I pulled in my Kkw Camo Palette, and I remember when I reviewed this palette, I was not impressed with this at all. But the second time around using this, I actually really enjoyed this palette. So I don't know what was up when I was testing this out. It could have been that I used like the warmer brown shades in this palette rather than like trying to work with like some of the, I don't know what the deal was, but I had much better luck with this palette, and it kind of made me want to continue to reach for this palette some more. I'm going to put it away for a little bit, but I thought I would not declutter this palette because I love camo so much, but I felt like it would be something in my collection that I just never reached for, and now I'm like, I kind of want to reach for it. And then of the 12 palettes that I pulled, the only palette that I didn't get use out of was my Odenzai Norns palette. I think I had pulled this for a video, and then I didn't put it back in my drawers where I keep the palettes that I'm actively working on. So I just kind of forgot that I pulled this. So I will roll this over and work on this in April. I'm really close to hitting pan on the shade Pink Chameleon up here. So I would really like to do that before I roll this out. Plus I just felt like April showers, like I could have some fun with like this bottom row with like the blues, purples, and teals. So I will keep this one in for April. If I had to choose my two favorite palettes from my March Shop My Stash, they would definitely be the Colourpop Lush Life, and then actually the Pat McGrath, I always forget which one this is, and it doesn't say on the back of mine. I actually reached for this 3 times too, so I should have included this in like my most reached for. I thought I would really love this palette most for the green shade, but I freaking love this shade right here. It looks pink, but then like if you hit the light right, it looks like green gold, and it's just so beautiful on the eyes. I also really enjoy this like matte brown shade, so random, but I actually really like that shade. This like quad of shades right here, so good. And I was like not feeling so great about owning this palette. I was like, I feel like I shouldn't have purchased this because it's so expensive, but I really enjoyed this one this past month. So I'll be excited to pull this one back out again in the future as well. All right, so now I have personally shopped my stash, and I'm here to share with you the things that I have picked out for April. We'll start with my Z palette. So here is what we already have that is rolling over, and then here is the shade that I rolled in from the whole collection Project Pan. It's a really beautiful bronze shade. I believe it came from the Colourpop Perception palette. So we're still obviously looking very like yellow and green, which is fine for April. I feel like this still like gives me April vibes. I did pull out another matte shade. This is the shade Strawberry Milk, which I have not used at all, and it is from Shroud Cosmetics. So I thought that that would be like my like theme for April was like I was thinking of like April showers, like pastels, maybe like lighter sorts of looks, if you will. And then I also grabbed the shade Nectar, which I believe is also from Shroud. Nope, this is from Colourpop. So I will pop that one in right there. And then I thought I had grabbed, I don't know if I'll have room for this. Oh, maybe I won't. Okay, well that'll be it. That'll be it, because that's all that fits. So I have Nectar from Colourpop, which I want to, what does this even look like? Oh, that's pretty. It's just like a silvery pink sort of shade, maybe with like a kind of bluish undertone, but maybe I'm just like imagining that. That's actually super pretty. I don't think I've ever used this single shade from Colourpop. So we have Nectar from Colourpop that we added, as well as Strawberry Milk, and then this is the roll-in from my whole collection Project Pan. But this is what my little Z palette is looking like. Kind of a random slew of colors, but that's a-okay. All right guys, and then as for the palettes, I'm really excited because I feel like I got some really good feedback on my last video. I was just reading through the comments before I filmed this video. I am trying to get better and back into like actually responding to my comments. It was like a year and a half where I barely responded to anything. So I love that you guys are giving me your ideas or like what you're planning to pull out for April, and want you guys to continue to do that, because I did pull out, I think I have 6 palettes that you guys recommended, and I'll try and pop up like your name and your recommendation as we go through. So up first, I have the Sigma Enchanted, which was recommended from XO Breezy 16, and this is one that I've actually been using pretty consistently all year already. I can't remember if I mentioned, but my like theme / inspiration, aside from what you guys are recommending, is like April showers and just like lighter, more pastel tones. I love this because I feel like I've been really into the shade Metamorphosis. I feel like I could create lighter looks, and this is a very springy palette, so I really like the recommendation. I am going to continue to reach for the Sigma Enchanted. I've really been enjoying that palette this year. Emily from Emily and Max, so you guys know I just love and adore, recommended I pull out pastels, which I was thinking about. So me and Emily were on the same page. I was very excited about that. So for my pastel palettes, Emily also was one of the inspirations in talking me out of the Natasha Denona pastel palette. So thank you, Emily, for saving me that $65. The Menagerie Pastel Pup palette I decided to pull out. I really like this palette and I think the quality is really good. I just obviously don't reach for pastels that much, which why would I have been thinking about buying the Natasha Denona pastel palette when I don't reach for pastels? But I'm very excited to just have some fun, just like sit and do my makeup and have some fun with pastels. And this is a fun one. I love the Menagerie formula, so I'm very excited about that. And then I also pulled out the Ice Cream Truck palette, or the Ice Cream Dream palette from Glamlite. I do really enjoy this. This is more like neon pastels, and I absolutely love the shimmer and foil shades in this. So I feel like I want to create like at least 2 or 3 really fun looks with this palette this month, and I'm very excited to pull that one out as well. I believe it was XO Breezy 16 that also said she had previously pulled the Tinkerbell for March, and it inspired me to pull my Tinkerbell palette from Colourpop for April. I feel like the greens in here, like I'm still feeling like the green vibes. Like even though March is gone and St. Patty's Day's over, I'm still feeling the green vibes, and it's been a little bit since I've reached for this palette, so I decided to pull this one out. I hope I pronounced this right. Katia, I hope, said her inspiration for April, thinking through like the April holidays, was 420. So she is going to pull out her melt palettes, the smoke sessions, etc. I had smoke sessions pulled out for March, but I only reached for it one time, and I actually reached for this shade when I reached for it and didn't reach for this half of the palette. I also feel like this is a great April palette as well, so I thought this one would be a fun one to pull, and then I pulled the Maryjane one as well in honor of 420. I personally will not be celebrating, that's not my thing, but I do love these melt palettes. I actually just recently ordered the Gemini 2, which I'm so freaking excited about. This Melt Smoke Sessions, not my favorite palette. It's very messy and a little bit difficult to work with, but you can get some really beautiful looks out of it, so I'm excited to reach for both of these. Trina said she was pulling out her Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde palette, so I figured I would pull mine out too. You guys know I love this palette. I am thinking of like a pastel look with like a fun pop of shimmer from the top, and then also some like really easy neutral everyday looks with some of the like 2 bottom rows, or maybe some more poppy looks with like Supernova or Gold Glitch. I absolutely love, so I'm very excited to be reaching for my Huda Mercury Retrograde. In February I missed out on reaching for my Norvina, and I decided not to carry it over, but Christy recommended that this could be a good palette for April, and I do agree. I feel like there's some really fun tones up in the shimmers, as well as like the shade Soul. I feel like just kind of gives me April vibes, so I'm excited to reach for my Norvina. And then I chose 5 other palettes myself. One of them is the Huda Beauty Gemstone Obsessions. I don't know what it is about the Huda Obsessions palettes. I just drop them all of the time. So I dropped this right before I filmed this, and I lost another shade. I've lost 2 shades out of this palette. I almost just threw this palette away because literally every shade was like broken, but then I pressed the rest of them in. I was like, no, I'm gonna save this. I'm really excited about using this palette. So this is one I feel like this is going, or was going on last year's palettes on their last hurrah. I feel like this one might just not make it till the end of the year. Like if I drop this again, it's definitely a goner. But I felt like the shimmers in here could be some really good like toppers to some more like pastel purple looks or things like that. And then speaking of pastel purples, I also pulled my Colourpop Tender Loving Cancer Quad because I really wanted to reach for like these 2 foiled shimmers at the top. I thought that those would be fun for April. I also grabbed my Persona Identity 2 palette. I don't know what it was, but there was just something about this palette that was screaming, pull me in April. So that's what I did. The Cindy Grace Tiny Marvels palette, I thought, and this is just such a great palette all year round, but it really does give me spring vibes, especially with this beautiful lilac shade, the green, and I love the foiled shimmers in this palette as well, so I'm very excited about this. And then the final palette that I pulled is not necessarily like an April vibed palette, but just the other day I was looking at my palettes and I was like, I have not reached for this Stone Cold Fox palette from Colourpop in so long. I feel like I just need to pull this one back out. So I'm pulling this to just give me inspiration to reach for this, give me that extra boost of motivation. And I feel like this could be a really good one just as I'm thinking through like quick work looks. This is a perfect palette to pull out. So those are all of the single shadows and palettes that I personally am pulling out for April. Again, leave me your comments. What do you want to see me pull next month for May? What are you pulling out for April? What are you pulling out for May? Let me know. I had so much fun, again, reading through the comments and pulling out the palettes that you guys recommended. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for your support as always. I love you guys so much, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye.